All right, welcome back to Birds of a Feather with Dustin and Alan, aka the Unraveler. By the way, in case you're wondering where the Unraveler came from, so after one of my friends, Rick Welch, read the book, he was a Christian before he read the book, remained a Christian after he read the book, which is cool, whatever, you know. But him and I became pretty decent friends. I don't know how this happened, but somehow through reading the book and him remaining a Christian, we started dialoguing, and it made it challenge his thinking for sure. And I'm hoping it eventually takes him all the way. But for now, you know, he had some questions, so we ended up dialoguing and became, you know, some pretty decent friends. But anyway, a couple of weeks of being friends or whatever, he sends me this text and he says, you know, if you were a superhero, your name would be the Unraveler, which I thought was funny. And I let that just go for a couple of weeks, and then I thought, huh, maybe that could be my online persona. So here we are, Alan the Unraveler. So we'll just see how it goes. But that's where that came from, and so I'm having some fun with it. But anyway, last episode we were talking about the release of How to Kill God the Easy Way. That was on October 31st, the first date of release. That was a really fun show, just talking about it and the whole journey through the book and everything. And Dustin was finishing out a thought on that, so I'm going to turn it back over to him to finish that thought and say whatever else he wants to do, and then I want to transition into talking about his book and his journey out of Christianity as well. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope people will give the book a shot. I really hope they will read it, and no matter what the outcome is on the other side, I think they'll be better off. And you talk about this in the very beginning. They're going to be better off no matter what. And I think that's an important consideration because on the other side of reading this book, you will have to have thought through some things. There's no other way to come out on the other side of this book. You're going to have to critically think through some things. Either that or you're just going to read it with a scoffing mentality, trying to walk into it, disproving the thoughts, which means you're not actually trying to read it objectively. You're just trying to dismantle something. And I understand that mentality. It's hard to get out of, but I really just hope people will approach this book with an open mind, thinking, I have nothing to fear. Truth is truth. And if Alan is right, then he's right. And if he's wrong, then he's wrong. And they just approach it that way. That's what I really hope.
Good. I think that's a good approach. And yeah, I do talk about that within the book itself. Is, you know, just approach this with an open mind. I
Yeah.
remember reading books, you know, a particular book on quitting smoking, you know, that helped me actually do it, by removing brainwashing, much like I do in the book. And I remember approaching this book with the anticipation, the question, you know, what if he's right? What would happen if he was right? You know, what if I read this book with the intention that could it be possible that somebody could help me remove the cravings, the desire to live a life of smoking by just reading a book? You know, at first you think, and I tell people about this book all the time, they're like, oh, that's stupid. That's not gonna help.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, right. That's stupid. That one, you know. So instead of that, I said, you know, I've tried everything else. I might as well give this a shot. Like, let me just be open minded and give it a shot. So that's the way I encourage people to read How to Kill God the Easy Way, because you might be thinking, oh, this is stupid. You're not going to convince me to leave Christianity. Okay, maybe I won't, but you should at least read it with the anticipation, with the question saying, what if? Just what if he's right? I'm going to read it with that mindset. Like, and I'll get to the end, and then I get the right to make my own decision. And if he didn't convince me, he didn't convince me. But I'm not going to go into it saying he won't convince me. That's a stupid way to approach any book.
Yeah.
You should read any book with the open mindedness that says, what if there's something this author says that could influence my life? Like, that's the way you should read. That's the only way you learn. So that's what I want to encourage people. So again, the link is below. I want to encourage you to buy it. Dustin book link is going to be below as well in this episode, because I want you to grab his book, because it's a great book. But we're going to talk in this episode about Dustin's journey beyond what he wrote in that book, because he's also grown, as I'm sure I will grow from my book in 3 years. You know, that's just the way life is. So, and my other two books that I wrote, I mean, I'm not even a preterist anymore. So, I mean, that's the way life is. You're right, you grow. You're right, you grow. You're right, you grow. So that's where we are. So I want to talk a little bit about Dustin's book, God in the Box, and Dustin's journey since then. Boy, this book, Dustin, man, I'll tell you what, bro, you are such a good writer. And I'll tell you, like, when my style of writing is, it's similar to yours in that it's personable, and we like to have write in a dialogue style. But the difference is I write more like heady dialogue, like think through stuff, whereas you know how to speak to a person's heart, you know, like that I mean, we don't believe in a spiritual heart anymore, but that emotional uh, movement of a person's feelings, like how to take people on a journey, and it's just amazing the way you can like. It's just really, really good. And every chapter, you just had me. I couldn't stop. I was like, oh my God. I literally read through your book in like 2 days, and that never happens. It was so good. Um, but like I said in the last episode, like you had me crying, you had me laughing. It's really, really well written. So even if it was just a fictional story and you didn't care anything about it, I would still encourage people to read because it's that good. Um, but of course, it was a part of your real life journey. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit about it, about what your goal was in telling that story, and then we'll touch on where you moved from there.
Man, when I wrote that book, I was coming out of, I mean, I was no longer Orthodox. I had been heterodox, considered heterodox for quite some time. I had been a full preterist for a long time when I wrote that book. I adhered to the covenant creation model of Genesis. I was close to a form of an Israel only kind of paradigm at that point as well. And for those of you who don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It's unnecessary information. But I was still a adherent of Jesus saves you, and you need this spiritual paradigm to be better kind of thinking. Um, but definitely I was not orthodox in any way, shape, or form. And my hope when I wrote this book was to give other people hope to know that their questions and doubts were felt by many. Because I realized at that point that a great many people were struggling with these doubts and these questions, but they did not feel safe enough to ask them. And if they did, they weren't getting the answers that they were hoping to find from their community. As you and I know, they will not get any answers from their community. And so I wrote that book really to just help people understand that there was someone else out there who went through what they were probably going through, and to the degree which, when you read the book, it almost killed me. Literally, it almost killed me, because you and I are built a little bit different, Alan, in that we are never okay with lackluster answers or holes in understanding. We're just not okay with that. I need to know if I'm going to adhere to something, and I'm going to proclaim that as the truth, especially with such dire consequences as religion presents to people. Then man, I needed to understand what I was believing and what I was proclaiming to other people. Um, and as I went through that journey, it just undid me, man. It was hard. Um, I like you, and the way I wrote the book is it's an autobiography. It is very candid. It is very open about my own personal life.
Yeah,
Um, and so people will go on that journey with me from beginning to the end. But yeah, since I wrote that book, Alan, I have evolved in my beliefs tremendously. So
yeah. No, it's a powerful journey. Yeah, you've gone through well, you've gone through things that a lot of people in life have never even contemplated. It's intense, dude. That your issues with drugs and alcohol and violence and oh my God, man, I tell you, it's just and and the interesting thing, if you think about it, Dustin, all of that while you were a Christian. and yet and yet now here you are, a godless atheist And for all intents and purposes, and seemingly from what I know of you today, you seem to actually have gotten your life together finally. That's
Yeah,
pretty
man, I am healthier and happier now than I have ever been before. And and I mean, you know my journey, man. I was a intensely studied individual who pursued truth on its deepest levels. Went to, I can't even tell you how many weeks and months of Christian counseling, and just ran the gamut of all of those resources within the Christian community, and none of it worked. You know, I ended up confused and frustrated and bewildered and angry. I couldn't understand why this Jesus or this spirit would not release me from these things when, man, I was absolutely willing to have them removed. I just didn't know how, but
yeah,
it never happened.
right. No, and it never happened for me either. Even though I didn't go as far as you did in the lifestyle, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, Christianity never had the answers for me either. It never solved it. And it was always a problem. Anyway, for those who are just catching up, and in case we didn't say it, I think I did, but just in case, the book we're talking about is called God in a Box by Dustin Curley, who is my partner here on the show, Birds of a Feather. And the link will be below. And I encourage you to buy it, even if you're an atheist already. It doesn't matter. It's just a good book. I really encourage you to read it because it's just good writing. Like holy cow, it's like watching a freaking movie. So regardless of where Dustin is today, it's still an incredible book, and I highly encourage you to read. I read it as an atheist, and it still moved me powerfully. So Dustin, you wrote this book. You started on your journey. You went through the whole gamut. You ended the book where you were a part of a church where the pastor of that church actually helped free you finally from all of the alcoholism that you were stuck in, and even the thoughts of death that you were having and everything. And everything seemingly looked powerful and positive, and it like the book ends on this magical note, and come to find out you're an atheist. And I'm like, what? And I've yet still to have this conversation with you because I personally really want to know the rest of the story, in the words of whatever that dude was that used to say, now the rest of the story. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad this isn't another raw moment because that would have been weird. Um, so yeah. So now for the rest of the story. So like give me. So you really need to put God in a Box Part Two. You need to write that because
I'm writing it. I'm
oh
writing
good,
it.
awesome. So maybe it's God out of the box or something, or the Joker
Yeah.
in the box. I don't know what you're gonna call it, but that's awesome because I want yes because readers need to yes, we need to know your journey. So give us kind of the rundown of where you're going with that because I want to know your story, bro. What happened after that?
So when I finished that book, I still believed in a form of the biblical God. Very loose definition, but still believed in that form of a God. I still believed in Jesus, although I did not believe Jesus was God anymore. The whole hypostatic union BS I had let that go a long time ago.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there was the hypostatic union is such sophistry. It's man, it's so it. Anyway, yeah, I had been through all of that, but I still believed in Jesus, and Jesus was a means to an end kind of a thing, and a great teacher, said some neat stuff. But when I got through with that book, of course, I continued my pursuit of truth, right? I began to dig into quantum sciences. I also began to read a lot of Emerson, James Allen, Carl Jung.
Alan Bondar.
Yeah, yeah, Alan Bondar. Yeah. Uh,
Ah,
but I began to read a lot of stuff geared towards mental faculties, mental processes, mind, brain, things like that. There's a new book I'm reading called Science of the Mind. Bro,
yeah.
that's an incredible book.
As a
Uh,
recommend? All right.
yeah, it's really good. But anyway, so I kept pursuing, and man, the more I pursued, the less rational the idea of a being somewhere in a non-spatial location that somehow controlled or didn't control things. No one really knew that existed. And oh man, Alan, letting go of that idea was hard.
Hmm.
Um, because then how do things work? What is the beginning of things? Why do things happen the way they do? Does that make
Well,
sense?
and I know exactly what you're talking about because, like in my book, what I give this visual of being in a prison. You don't realize it's a prison, and then through all the removal of the brainwashing, the prison door opens, and here you stand in your prison cell, and you've never been out there yet. And so all you know is this. You know something's wrong. You know it. You know 100% this is wrong. And you got to go out there. And yet you're like, I don't know if I'm ready to take this step. I don't know if I'm ready to walk out there because I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know the answers. I don't know what is. This made sense in this prison, but now it doesn't. And I'm stuck. Even though my prison door is open, how do I take that first step? Like that's a scary place to be. Yeah. I remember feeling like that too. Like I remember, yeah, I feel like nothing made sense anymore. It was done. It was over. And I was like, crap, I'm about to take a step into a void I know nothing about.
Yep. Yeah, man. And that's, being at that jumping off place was really scary. But I know no other way to live than to jump. Because I can't move backwards into intellectual dishonesty. I can't do that. I mean, I did that a few times in my process out in my deconstruction process. I did that a few times. I would retreat back in because I'd go, holy crap, that's too much. But then I would have to go back up to that edge and jump. So look, let me say this because I don't know where we are on time, and time goes by so fast in this. I want to define what it means for me to be an atheist because everybody has a caricature of even that word or that construct of thinking. Their terms and definitions to me are the most important thing in any dialogue. They mean everything. When it comes to the biblical idea of a God, I am an absolute atheist. That God does not exist. And I am so grateful that God does not exist because it is the most, this is going to rub people the wrong way, but that God is a rapist, pedophile, whimsical, capricious, pernicious a-hole.
Mhm.
I mean, it is. And I don't care. You can argue with me all day long. That God of the Bible is not nice. Jesus was the soft version of that God, but then when you start to see through the holes in that, you're like, come on, man. Um,
I mean, yeah.
so
I mean, like, sorry, just like little things like, throwing tables around at a temple because you try that. You try walking into a church today, throwing a bunch of shit around because they're having a garage sale and having inappropriate scales. I don't care how inappropriate they are or how dishonest they are, you're the one going to jail for that. Or
big
destroying
time,
a whole slew of pigs that belong to somebody just because you decided to cast demons. Like
which
you have,
was against the
where do you get
law.
where do you get this right to just destroy people's property? Like he's a softer version, but he's still a dick.
Yes, dude. I mean, yeah, and there's just so much people don't. I mean, man, honestly, Alan, and you know this, 90% of the Christians out there have no idea about any of the covenantal or historical context to any of the Bible. They don't. And when you start talking to them about that stuff, they get this glazed look over their face and they're like, well, I just know that what I believe and I experienced is, and I go, oh God, anyway,
Well, no, not anyway.
so
Like I want to pause there for a second because like I said, I had a conversation with one of my friends, Sandra Larson, a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about Noah's flood, right? And when we're Christians, you don't ever take the time to think and to digest the fact that there are literally babies drowning and suffocating to death, and a whole bunch of women who are even pregnant, or daughters or fathers who are good to their family, drowning, suffering. Like, you don't think about that. You suppress that. You don't think about it. You just think, oh, this is a
Think about the
wonderful thing.
rainbow.
It's a rainbow. God did a wonderful thing. He destroyed all the evil people, and now he's going to bring good out of it. No, what good came of it for Noah and his seven people? Oh, because 2,000 or whatever, 6,000 years later, Jesus came and saved everybody. What does that have to do with them? He still destroyed every. In fact, I was trying to wonder with her as I was thinking about it. I was like, why do you even need these types and shadows? What was the point? As a Christian, you justify it. Oh, we need types and shadows so we know what the spiritual realm looks like, because we can't understand it unless we know what it's like in the physical realm. And we make up stupid shit because it doesn't make any sense. And now I'm just like, what the hell? I praised this event. Oh, this is wonderful.
Dude,
God made people drown. That's not wonderful. What? Anyway,
man,
back to you, but I just needed to pause on that because that's sick. Like, that's what
let
you're
me tell
talking
you,
about.
man, as a part of my healing process, I began to rewrite those stories. I rewrote the Abraham and Isaac story. I rewrote the flood story. I rewrote the Cain and Abel story. I rewrote them from the real perspective with all of the details brought out to light that no one ever talks about. Bro, I wrote that flood story and posted it on Facebook. You would not believe the private messages I got from people. Half of them were like, dude, I have never, ever considered that. That never even crossed my mind. The other half, of course, where you're filled with demons, you're going to burn in hell. I can't believe you would write such. God didn't do that. He sure did. It's in your freaking Bible. I mean, dude,
Right?
because the hearts of humans were so vile and wicked, God was going to flood. Why were they? How was a baby's heart vile and
Right.
wicked? And
Right.
can you imagine a mom clinging to a rock, trying to pull herself up with her baby to not drown as they gasped for air while Noah stood on the ark and went, whoo, deuces, evil,
Yeah.
vile
Right.
people. It is the most sick story. It is so sick,
Yeah.
but you can't see. And here's another thing. We teach kids that story.
Oh,
That's child abuse. Dude, in my opinion, that is mental and emotional child abuse to teach a kid that a good, loving God would destroy those people, but we gloss over it and put a pretty bow on it and call it okay. They're at children's church right now learning about the Lord. Bro, I'm so glad I pulled my kids out of that BS before they had that filled in their head. It's sick.
oh,
It
you know what I hear constantly? You're just angry. You're just an angry person now that you're an atheist. And
has,
I'm like,
I'm not
yeah,
angry at
damn straight
all.
I'm angry. I'm angry.
Well, and the truth is, I'm not angry because I don't believe it.
Well, I'm angry that I was brainwashed into it for
Well,
40
yeah,
years,
I mean,
right?
yeah, well, and the truth is, I duped myself. I bought into something. That is my own,
Well,
that,
I don't know when you got saved, but I grew up in it, bro.
oh,
So
yeah, see, I didn't. Yeah, I
yes,
was, yeah.
you're the idiot. You duped yourself. Fuck you,
Yeah.
man. I didn't. We're not birds of a feather in that way, man. I
Yeah,
was
you have an
I would have been
excuse. I
I
don't.
would have been
Yeah.
too smart for that. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so let's recapitulate here. So I when it comes to that God, I am absolutely an atheist. When it comes to the idea of a being, some cosmic being, I do not believe in that either. I do not believe in any of that. There's absolutely zero evidence for it, and there's absolutely no one in this world who has ever proven that that thing exists. It is a form of self-delusion, which is a belief. All belief is a form of self-delusion, and then they walk into every circumstance believing a priori this thing, and then all the evidence supports that one thing. So I don't believe in that either. So in that sense, I am an atheist. Now, is there some strange way that everything works together, and that the consciousness can be collective, kind of in an Emerson thought process, that there's this collective consciousness and in this quantum field we can all tap into energy and grab energy and manipulate energy and be connected. And there's some, at least for now, mysterious way that all of that works in this non-strictly materialistic way, possibly. So I'm agnostic when it comes to that because I don't have enough knowledge to understand that. And I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody ever will, actually. I think it's just going to be this continuous pursuit. Although the field of quantum mechanics has done more for science in the last 100 years than anything ever has. I mean, it has opened up fields of thinking that are blowing people's minds. And so that is why I don't relegate myself to a staunch atheist in all matters and strictly a materialist. I don't relegate myself to that. I am atheist in most forms when it comes to a God thing, but I am agnostic when it comes to the way the universe functions and some of the things we call mystery and coincidence and things like that.
So I would agree with you 100%, actually. I didn't realize we were even this close. The only distinction I would make where I maybe not agree is, and we probably are on the same page. We just might semantically be saying something different. When I think of the term God, I think of a supernatural, um, personal being that controls all things, right?
Yeah,
So that's God.
yeah,
And
that's
I don't believe there's apologists have tried to prove that God for thousands and thousands of years, and we've still gotten nowhere. There's that doesn't. I am now convinced that does not exist. I'm an agnostic to the point where I still am open to it being proven. Should something come around that actually has some evidence, but there is none. So at this point,
yeah.
I'm ready to move away from that and be like, I'm an atheist because I don't think that's a possibility anymore. I think we're done venturing in that area. Let's just move on. But I'm an agnostic in the same way you are, that I think there's so much to explore in the non-material. I'm not a materialist. I do believe in energy. That's not a material thing. But
Oh,
the difference is that energy has been proven, empirically proven, even though it's not a material thing, but it is empirically proven because the same tests produce the same results over and over again, just like gravity. Gravity is not a physical material thing, but it's been proven. God has yet to be proven. There's nothing like when I look for evidence, I look for evidence that actually is sufficient for the case at hand. So if we're trying to prove, let me give you an example. Let's say we're in a court of law and we're trying to prove that Dustin Curley committed a murder. All right, so Dustin, you're on trial for murder of Joanne B, whatever her name is, Joanne B. And so the prosecuting attorney comes up and they give a really good case that a human committed this crime. And they can prove without a shadow of doubt that a human without quite because they got human prints. They don't
DNA
know
evidence, forensics.
whatever. Everything proves that a human created this, did this crime. And then they say, and therefore, Your Honor, Dustin Curley is your murderer. And the judge says, wait, what evidence do you have that Dustin actually did it? Well, Your Honor, you just have to have faith. Would you be content to have your trial be determined by faith, even though the claim is we have all this evidence to show that a human did it? You just have to have faith to take you the rest of the way that Dustin did it. That's asinine. Nobody would be okay with that. But that is exactly what apologetics does. They say,
Yeah,
well, all this proof that something somewhere out there is created and started all of this, and it's God. Well, how do you know it's God? We just have to have faith. Well, what was the point of wasting all my time with the rest of this shit? Because if I just have to have faith anyway, then I don't need the evidence, right? I mean, like, that's the problem with this. It's like, I don't need evidence if you're requiring me to go the rest of the way with faith. That's a stupid line of reasoning. So that's really what we're up against. So that's why I don't believe there's any evidence for God, because when we're talking about evidence, I'm talking about evidence that's good enough for the case at hand. And the case at hand is, does God exist? And the answer is faith alone. Sorry, you just struck out because there is none. You've given me
Well, there's
nothing.
well, and when you press those people, it is faith in their philosophical construct.
Oh yeah. On top of that,
It
yeah.
doesn't mean faith in
Caricature, as you like
evidence.
to say.
Yes, and that's, man, all of that is where, when I published my book and I began pursuing answers to those questions, that's where I began to get really perplexed. I mean, I went back through Anselm's ontological argument. Gordon Clark, man, I loved Gordon Clark, um, which he was a philosophical apologist, but Van Til. I mean, I went back through all of their arguments, but looking at it really objectively for evidence, Alan, there's none.
None.
And that's when, all these scales began to fall off my eyes, and I was like, wow, there's just no way, there's no way. Either a person is going to be intellectually honest or they're going to stick their head in the sand. And and I believe we talked last show about some people who have read your book and some people who we highly respect. I believe that those people stick their head in the sand because of paychecks and positions. That's what I think. There is a lot to be said for this sense of grandiosity and importance and purpose and belonging when you have this position of authority and teaching and knowledge and all of those things, to be forced to look back on that and vacate that is, you just, how do you do that, right? And so what people do, people that you and I know and we trust, they stick their heads in the sand and they just go, no, your whole book is just a straw man, Alan. It's just philosophical nonsense. Okay, well, tell me how. Because you have a duty. You literally have a moral and spiritual duty to teach me truth and to save my soul from eternal damnation. So why aren't you doing that? Why can't you present me with conclusive evidence that says, here, look, it's so freaking simple to see?
Because
And
it's
I would
not,
go,
there is no evidence for the case at hand. That's the
no, there's not.
thing.
And that's what people who read your book or who sit down, I have sat down with many a pastor, man, Bible open. I've told them, bring your Bible, man. You need to bring your
And
Bible.
you're going to have to tell us the rest of that next time. We're out of time.
Ah, dude.
Everybody, it was great hanging with you. I hope you be a fly on the wall next week with Birds of a Feather. Dustin and I are looking forward to next week's conversation. Like below, make a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure you click on both of our links for our books, grab them, help us out, help spread the word. We appreciate being a part of your life. Justin, Jesus Christ. Dustin, what is your last thoughts to get out of this?
This 30-minute thing is hard to do. It's great. It's great because it is a cliffhanger, but I'm going to be excited to get into uh, some of those topics. I want to hear discussions. I want to maybe talk about discussions we've had and how those have gone.
Oh, totally. And also an episode totally. Uh, you said it wasn't important, but I disagree on Israel only because I know that there's a lot of people who are no longer Christians because of that view, but they're not necessarily atheists. So I would like to discuss how you take them on the journey that we went through. So we'll discuss that on another episode. Everybody, have a great week. Talk to you next week. Bye.